welcome back to another episode of the Anchor of the Week. It's been a while, but good things take time. We've got a great episode for you today.
Yes, we have a special guest with us. We're just going to dive into a story. It's an exciting actually time for us because, our church has been involved with kind of some of the protests that have been going on. We've been going there as these are the freedom protests, and we've just been going there, just being the church and kind of helping Louise right next to me in kind of leading them. So actually, it's pretty cool background. She's got 30 cases against her. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And she's
13.
13.
So, 13.
13.
Four,
What did I say? I said
was
13.
very excited, and now we have exaggerated this.
Let's try that again. 13 cases and 4...
So it's in 4 different court cases. Yeah, they're spread out.
Yeah, so that's a lot going against you there.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
So I'm Louise. I founded Save Our Rights UK, which is a human rights organisation that's a grassroots organisation. It's run on volunteers, and we do a lot of different work, but part of it is organising events. We started events in Brighton, which is my hometown, and we started with just 6 people at my first ever event on the 20th of April 2020. And our biggest, in June 2021, we had about 1 million people. So it's been a journey.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And if you guys are listening, again, we just want to encourage you, no matter what your political view is on basically anything, to really just stay invested in this conversation, because we really believe, hearing Louise, your story, no matter where you feel like you align, I think your story has so much weight and so much worth. And I think we can all learn something from this. So that is just our little disclaimer at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Please stay, guys. This is going to be an amazing talk, an amazing episode. I think we also want to kind of dive into Save Our Rights, and I think a lot of times we can see it, as just the issues that are printed in the paper, vaccine versus no vaccine, COVID, no COVID, lockdown, no lockdown, all these things pitted against.
Yeah.
But Save Our Rights is so much more than that, Can you kind of tell us about that and even how it started? Did it start before lockdown? Was it something that came because of lockdown, how that worked?
So for me, I've had one of those lives where, I've always been a bit of the underdog, and I've had this need to kind of fight for the underdog. I was a single mum from 2016, but before that I was very much not just a mum. I was a mum trying to look after and keep my kids safe, and we do things in a bit of an alternative way, and they were my main focus from when I was 19. And then in 2016, 2017, 2017, there was a snap general election called, and my brother was getting involved. And I thought, well, I'm going to go get involved because, this means something to me because, as a single mum, there is one party that serves as single mums better than the other party. So for me, it was an important issue. And through that, I kind of got involved in advocating for women's rights. Again, having been the victim of domestic abuse, this is women's rights are something that was really close to my heart. So I got involved in that. And then I actually got a job working for my local MP. And I thought, and I was kind of a bit naive, and I thought, I'm going to get in there. And if I get in there, I can make a difference. And I worked there for 2 years, and I realized that this system, it doesn't matter if you're in there, even if you're the MP, there's very little you can actually do. And there isn't even the mechanisms really to represent the people properly. And I was horrified by what I saw. I was really disheartened, and, I went in really excited but came out really disheartened. And so I stopped working there, in 2019, I think it was. And I was then looking at what else I was going to do. But I wanted to do something where I kind of spoke out and fought for something, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And I had this grace period financially, and my son had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So I was kind of focused on that as well. And then when the whole lockdown thing came about, I was looking at it, and what horrified me the most, there was two things. One, I felt this real empathy and pull and just horror, quite frankly, at all the women who are in domestic abuse situations facing lockdown with their abusers. There is just, I cannot imagine there being anything worse, frankly. And so for me, there was just this instinctive, lockdown's going to cause harm, even if it was only to those women, but it wasn't. Obviously, as we know, it caused harm further. And I was really concerned about that. But parliamentary protocol was completely abandoned. To bring lockdown in, it was brought in as secondary legislation from a piece of legislation which it shouldn't have come from. It was completely beyond the reach of powers. And then they brought in this other piece of legislation, the Coronavirus Act 2020. And again, that was a 364-page document passed in one day without any proper debate. When actually what there's something called the Civil Contingencies Act 2004, which was made for pandemics back in 2004. And that should have been used. So for me, that was a real problem. The fact that the acceptance of parliamentary protocol just being completely abandoned. And once parliamentary protocol gets abandoned, we're in a bad place, where rights are just going to keep getting trampled on. And so that for me was an issue. And so the day they announced lockdown, I was really upset about it. I was not happy about it. But they'd said 3 weeks to flatten the curve. So I was like, okay, we'll give 3 weeks, see what happens. And then on the day when they announced that they were going to extend lockdown on the 16th of April, they said something that really upset me, was that Sir Patrick Vallance, the chief scientific advisor, he said, you have to remember that the deaths on the ONS website are people who have got COVID on their death certificate. It doesn't necessarily mean they're infected because many of them weren't even tested. So, he admitted then and there that the numbers weren't even accurate and they were just going to extend it. And I could foresee that it was just going to get extended and extended and extended. And I was like, something has to be done. Something has to be done. And I feel like I've got something to offer because I know how the political system works and I can help, and I feel like I've got something to offer to this cause. So I went and I started looking for somebody who was doing something, a group that was doing something. But nobody was. There was nobody. I searched and there was nobody taking up that mantle at that point. And
These are the early days.
Yeah, so this is 3 weeks into it.
Wow.
And so I prayed, and God said, you start something. And I said, okay. And he said, it's called Save Our Rights. And I was like, okay. And so I started, and it started with a Facebook group and a Facebook page. And the Facebook group said, add 5 friends to get started. And I went, okay. So I added 5 friends. And that's how Save Our Rights was born.
And then fast forward like a year, and what was it, 1 million people in June?
Yeah. So
wow.
that's how it came about. And God started this, so I trust that God's taking it where it needs to go. I try very hard to let God work through me on it. It's not me. It's not about me. I very much see that I'm just here doing God's work.
Yeah. It's interesting to say, right? It's not about me, which of course, and we know you, and you've never made it about you, but you are the leader now of kind of accidentally, of this massive kind of movement that's going on through London or through, the UK really. But yeah, is that a lot of pressure? Do you find that to be a lot of pressure? Or how do you handle that, And again, all eyes are on you. And we were talking earlier, like when people want to attack someone, they're going to attack you, because you're the face of it, if you will.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of pressure. And there are times when it feels too much. I have the police turning up at my door. I have people like doing smear campaigns online. I have the media doing smear campaigns their way. And, it can be really hard work. But I am always buoyed up when I go to events and people come up and they say thank you. They just and I'm like, if all I've had achieved in the last 18 months was making one person's experience of this whole nightmare easier, then I've done something good. I've done something worthwhile. And, you know, I come at this with and try and keep an attitude of service. You know, I'm here to be of service. And, but, you know, times it gets tough. And I kind of go, well, you know, God won't give you more than you can handle. So I must be able to handle this. But sometimes I'll be like, come on, because I do have 4 kids at home as well. So it can be very challenging at times to juggle it all. But, you know, we just get up and do it again the next day.
I mean, obviously originally it was 5 friends on a Facebook group. I imagine it's a bit more than that now. So, like, what's the, like, everyday, I mean, I'm sure it's not just you turn up on a once a month protest and with 500,000 people across London. I'm sure there's more day-to-day things now. Do you want to talk us through kind of just your week a little bit?
Yeah, gosh. So it's on the go, and so much of it is behind the scenes, you know. So I'm always networking, getting contacts, you know, meeting people. I go to meetings with other groups to see how we can best coordinate. So we have a number of those each week. I talk to other leaders. I talk to policymakers. I do interviews like this to spread the awareness, and then I'm also, working on the website, writing letters to MPs, writing newsletters to get the messages out, planning the events.
A lot of time.
Yeah.
It's like a full-time job, right?
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
like, I hope you don't mind me asking you this, but like, you don't get paid for this, or you do get paid for this, or?
So Save Our Rights takes donations, but that all goes mostly back into, so we pay for volunteers' expenses to events, and I think I've taken like a £500 wage in 18 months.
So that's a
That's a lot for your time.
Yeah.
Or like not a lot for your time, really.
The emphasis there is like, you're sacrificing a lot.
Yeah.
Right, aren't you? And you're really fighting for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, like we were saying before, it's like vaccine, no vaccine, passport, no passport. Like, Save Our Rights is very much in the name. It's like, what you guys are fighting for is, you know, whatever COVID is, it's actually the fact that, like, you feel like the government are taking away our freedom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're infringing upon our human rights. You know, we have a right to private and family life. We have a right to social life. We have a right to education. We have a right to run our business. We have a right to access healthcare. And all of those were taken away during the pandemic. And they said it was trumped by the right to life. And now you can argue that, but, you know, lockdown kills too. And I think, you know, it's short-sighted to see it as just focus on one issue at any one time. And I feel like there could have been better ways, and I think it could have been done without mandates. You know, they never had to mandate staying at home. They could have just told people to stay at home. There was no reason why it had to. That's one of the issues that I take with it, you know, is the mandation of all of these measures instead of just giving good advice to people. And like I say, we have a government right now that was voted in on a manifesto that said they want to get rid of the Human Rights Act, and they have just reaffirmed their desire to get rid of the Human Rights Act at the party conference. So, you know, our human rights, you know, are on, you know, a thin thread anyway. And so therefore we're going to have to fight for them if we want to keep them. You know, they're trying to take away our right to protest right now. They're trying to take away, you know, in the policing bill, and they're trying to take away our rights to free speech with the online harms bill. You know, it's not just the COVID issues. There's so many attacks upon our rights and freedoms right now, and Save Our Rights covers them all.
Yeah. And do you think that a lot of people get, like, I would say maybe distracted even just by the COVID issues, because it is so in our face, you know, or those are the ones that seem to affect us immediately in the now. You know, it's so hard sometimes for us to understand other issues if they don't affect me, or they don't affect me now, you know. But yeah, what are you guys trying to do? Because I know, like, of course, COVID is the big thing. But when it comes to, like, the other things, even as you said, like the online harm bill, like things that people are like, oh, well, yeah, but that's like in the future. You know what I mean? Yeah, what does it kind of look like, I guess, for you in those areas as well that might be less tangible in the moment, you know? But
so we'll do a lot of political campaigning. So at the moment, like the policing bill, which is affecting our right to protest, that is going through the House of Lords at the moment. So I'm in regular contact with as many lords as that I managed to recruit onto our side.
Are you partnering with, like, the Kill the Bill movement at all, or is it kind of?
No, I I don't necessarily think the whole bill needs to be scrapped,
Right.
because there are actually some. It's a very, very wide bill.
It's extremely wide range.
Yeah. So, and there are
Yeah.
some bits in it that I don't think need to be
Yeah.
scrapped. So, but you can scrap the policing bit without killing the whole bill. So, and I'm just not for aggressive titles like "Kill the Bill" either. I'm far
Fair
more
enough.
pacifist than that. And so so working on that with the Lords, and then it'll come back, and then we'll be doing campaigns, helping people to petition their MPs and lobby their MPs when it comes back to the House of Commons. Online harms bill, working with the Reclaim Party and Barrister Francis Hoare on that. They wrote a really good report on that, and we will again be lobbying MPs. We'll be going through the bill with once it's fully proposed with a fine-tooth comb, and also, you know, we've also created a social media site where we're going to maintain free speech regardless of what the online harms bill says. You know, we're making a platform where, as an alternative, so that we can keep our free speech.
So, I mean, let's dive a bit deeper here. Like, I think, you know, what keeps you... This is a lot to sacrifice. It's a lot of your time. You're involved in absolutely loads. It's really cool, but there must be things that keep you going. You know, do you see changes from these protests? You know, what even is, just first of all, what's the main goal with going through London with 1 million people? You know, what are you trying to achieve with things like that?
So with the events in London, the main thing is to show a force of strength, you know, and that we're not backing down. It's why we go month after month after month, and it means that there's a space for new people every time, and we get new people every single month that have never been on an event. And we now, because we're focusing on medical freedom, that is the main thing about our events, is medical freedom. So no to mandated vaccines and no to vaccine passports, because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, the vaccine could be the best thing since sliced bread. It should never be mandated or forced upon anybody. You know, they could be mandating vitamin D for everybody, and I'd say that was a problem too, even though I take it. Like, it's not what the issue. The thing is, and I think people get confused there as well. And yeah, because we're focused on medical freedom, we're actually getting people who've had both the vaccines come with us because they agree that, you know, they've had the freedom to choose to get it, and and anybody who chooses not to should have the freedom to not. It's not about whether the vaccine's right or wrong. It's about whether the government can be forcing that on anybody. So we keep going out because it's high energy. It's such a positive day. It brings a lot of joy to everybody who comes.
It's a lot of fun.
It's great fun, especially with you guys drumming at the front. It makes my life so much easier. I'm so grateful to you guys coming along. And, you know, and we grow, and it's that routine, that keeping up the pressure, and we're just not going to back down. We're not going to let this issue like just fade out of the public realm. And we want to keep raising awareness, keep doing different things, and we'll keep going, because, you know, it's an important, it's a part of. It's not the one and only thing.
Yeah.
It never will just be the one and only thing. And it's like, you have to do other things too, which is why I do all the other stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. And something that when we were kind of talking and planning about kind of came to us, right? Like, obviously, the main thing against, especially the medical freedom and all of that, is to eliminate segregation. Do you know what I mean? So it's not them versus us kind of a thing. And yeah, so as a society, we're not shunning other people, right? But yet when we, like, you know, protest anything, we are kind of creating disunity. And this was just an interesting topic that we were like just talking like amongst Zach and I, you know, like, is initial disunity or like clash needed for eventual unity? Do you know what I mean? And just kind of like your thoughts. And I guess that would, you know, there might be some people that say, well, protests don't change anything. You know what I mean? You're just, you know, what would you say to that? Or like, and that kind of, that aspect of, because I think we can all agree we want a unified future. Like, I don't think anyone, if you don't want that, I mean, I'm sorry, like, you must hit your head somewhere, because that's kind of what we all want, you know. But.
People say that protests don't change anything, and I disagree, but it's a long-term strategy. If you want real change, you know, you have to kind of be in this for the long haul, you know. We're hoping to make a difference very much on the vaccine passports, hopefully soon. I'm working pretty hard on that in the background, and that's something that we've been campaigning on. But we've been campaigning on that actively since November last year, and lots of people are looking for quick fixes, and I'm like, that's not how it's ever going to work, you know. But protests raise awareness. Protests bring people together, and actually, you know, the more they happen and the more people that go along, and, you know, the more people hear about it and the more people see that there's all these different types of people. Because we've had judges, we've had celebrities, we've had nuns, we've had the whole lot like coming along to these events. I know, right? And it's like, and it takes a lot of the stigma out of it and makes it like not a scary issue. And like I say, we do get people who've had both vaccines coming. So it's not us and them. And we show that we're the place. And actually, it's been one of the things that I love about the events is we have people from the right to the left. We have every race, every nationality. We have young, old. We have all different classes. It's such like we're not in one segregated group. We're actually probably a movement that has the widest scope of the nation, and it's phenomenal. And I love that. I love going there and seeing all these different types of people, and it's not a narrow focus at all, you know. So I love that about the events, and I think that shows that we are living in unity, and we are living and showing that it's possible, that all these people can come together, vaccinated, unvaccinated, poor, rich, all of
everything.
Everybody's there together, and we're proving that it's possible. So it's really powerful. And most protests happen once a year, or they happen as a one-off. We go month after month after month, and we will keep going month after month after month. For as long as is necessary, and we will grow, and we're going to grow again this winter because there's going to be a lot of discontent. You know, if we get another lockdown, if you know, and now with all this price caps on energy, the universal credit being cut, furlough being cut, you know, people are going to realise that, you know, the government is not looking after their best interests, and ultimately we're the place which is going to work to fight for all these people.
Yeah. Something that you guys also, sorry, Zach, yeah, I love this so much. Something that I think it's your Instagram bio says like uniting for real democracy. And just very curious, you know, of what that real democracy looks like to you, you know, because of course we've talked a lot about, you know, how you see the flaws in like the government systems, and obviously, you know, working as with the MP?
With my local MP.
Yeah, with your local MP. Want to make sure I got the context right. But yeah, like what does that look like for you?
So really, I think it's one of those things where all the systems really need to change. You know, the political system, the banking system, the health system, you know, and even the education system, because, you know, the education system doesn't teach you about politics. It doesn't teach you about how the world works. It doesn't teach you about, and and it doesn't encourage people to be free thinkers, you know, and, you know, if we want to keep, there's no point in implementing some sort of real democracy if people don't understand what that means. You know, if we want real change, you know, we have to start with the future generations. And again, it'll be something that is probably going to take generations to really feel the benefits of. But ultimately, what I want is, you know, I think there's a better version of a political system, you know, and it's something that ultimately we will be working towards. And it's so hard because we end up firefighting a lot because, you know, vaccine passports come up and this happens and policing bill and the online harms bill. So it's hard to find the time to balance and go for the real big aim. But actually, again, I think that's what's going to unite, again, all of the people, because there's very few people that aren't disenfranchised with or had some sort of bad tale with the government. You know, single mothers, you know, have a really hard time. You know, disabled people have a horrific time trying to get disability benefits. You know, people whose main focus is climate change or women's rights or BLM, all these groups want political change. So why not unite? And this system isn't giving it to them, and it's not going to. So why? Because this system was made many hundreds of years ago by rich and powerful people to keep rich and powerful people rich and powerful. That is what this political system is designed for, and will will protect them to the end of time. And it's not for the people. I've worked in it, and I've looked at it, and I've tried to get the little voices up to the House of Commons, and you cannot. Wow. It does not represent the people, and there are no mechanisms to change policy if we don't agree with it. We don't have any power. Yeah. We don't, because we've given it all away. And so I say we have to take it back and implement a system that actually gives us a voice, values our voice, and enables us to have mechanisms to change policy that we are not happy with. There should be mechanisms, and there are places across the world that have mechanisms that do that. It can happen, and it should happen. And ultimately, it needs to happen here in the UK too.
Wow. You
mentioned earlier on about your faith and things, and how you felt like God was calling you to do this. Do you want to elaborate a bit? Because, where is like God and kind of your faith in now? Like, obviously, this was at the very start. A lot's changed since then.
Yeah.
What does that look like now? Like, is it something you going back to it constantly? Is it a huge part still of your life?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of my faith is practiced through a type of prayer called Lectio Divina, which is a contemplative prayer where you just sit and you listen to what God has to tell you.
What's it called?
Lectio Divina.
Okay.
It's a Benedictine practice. So it's a really wonderful practice where you just you don't talk at him, like you just sit and listen to him, and for me that has just been invaluable. Sometimes he'll tell me no.
We love that, don't
and
we?
he's quite forceful about that. And I'm like, oh, but I want to.
Yeah. That's nice.
And, and there's been times where I've heard no and gone and done it anyway, and then learnt from my mistakes, because that's
Can I get an amen? Anyone?
Because that's kind of how it works, right? Yeah. That's why we have free will, so we can learn to trust. But yeah, so I go back to him, and I can, I always tap in, and it helps to keep me humble, helps me to not bring my ego into it, helps me to not make this about me, and to really keep this as an act of service, and to, and trust the next right step. And then it really helps actually with anybody that slanders me or slanders what I'm doing, because actually I know that God's leading this, and therefore it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks of it. They can not like me, they can not like it, but if I've got God behind it, then I'm going to trust that I'm going the right way, even if people can't see that. It's not that I'm always open to feedback. I'm open to constructive feedback always, and I trust that God works through people sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
And will bring me that feedback in other ways. But when it's just an attack, I just use God and seek my comfort in him.
I actually never heard of the term you used.
Is
Lectio
it Latin?
Divina. Yeah.
Oh, look at
okay, yeah. That's cool.
Just trying to look smart. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Is it like, I mean, this was just a side on because you mentioned it early on. Is it like, do you do other things as well involved with faith? How do I question this? Like, do you read your Bible much? Is it like are you going to church at all? Like, not that those things make you Christian at all, but just like, are there other aspects as well?
So yeah, Lectio Divina involves reading prayer, and I'm part of a kind of church community, and so we have a daily reading that we all take it in turns to record a reading from the Bible.
Awesome.
So we have that every day, but I have. Since I became a single mum, going to church with 2 autistic children, 1 diabetic, and everything else has just proven too hard. Yeah. So, but I've never strayed far away because God goes with you everywhere. You can't go to church, as much as I love church. So, Easter is our main thing. Yeah. We get together with our community. we go up to a big Benedictine monastery up in Yorkshire usually, and we run the children's program up there. So there's like thousands of people together for Easter, and the children love it. We've been going there since 2009, but it's not been on the last couple of years it's been really hard to be separated from the community for that long because we live all over the country and I'm the only one down here.
Oh.
So, and we also, because we're called the Community of St. Elred, and he's the patron saint of spiritual friendship. So we do spiritual accompaniment with like one-on-one with another member of the community. So I check in with him and we talk about our spiritual life and how God's manifesting in our life through that.
That's awesome. And I think like a lot of times we think like, yeah, well, just like Sunday morning church, but it's community, right? And it's a community of believers. And I think that's really cool. And I think like, you can see that in the entire movement that you're doing, right? And even what we've just said in this conversation, that it's always been about community, and bringing people together and uniting. And I think it's a beautiful, like, I guess continuity throughout that. It doesn't have to look a certain way. Like, that's totally fine, but I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Just going back to kind of what we're talking about. I guess right now, obviously, there's a lot to fight for. Once, let's say the government, they go, right, you don't need to do, you don't have to have passports, you don't have to have the vaccine, you have a choice. Does it stop there, or do you see a future where you guys are fighting for a different area or whatever?
Well, like I say, for me, ultimately, I'll be going until we've got a real democracy. That's my ultimate aim. But once that's in, I do plan on going on holiday.
Understandably so.
I'll be ready for a holiday by then. And, bask in the sun somewhere, because we used to travel a lot before COVID. And, right now I can't get out of this island, quite frankly. So yeah, that's the ultimate aim. We will keep going until people's human rights are upheld and people have a voice. And and I see that being, gosh, if we did it in 5 years, that'd be phenomenal. But it's probably going to be 10, 15, ultimately to really get a real democracy in place. And that's fine. I'm kind of young enough to be able to keep going. And yeah, but then I'll go on my holiday.
Yeah, perfect. Any locations you're planning for right now? Or?
Oh, just anywhere it's sunny with a beach.
There you go.
Frankly.
That's it.
Like I'm
Easy
usually an adventure holiday. Like the last holiday we went on, we managed to get away actually February 2020. We spent 9 days like trekking through jungles in India and stuff. Me and the kids. But it's and usually we're kind of more adventure holidays. But I'm in the mood for a beach.
Yeah. A beach and a pina colada, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess as we're kind of going to start to like wrap up a little bit, one thing that is really interesting to us, right, and that we've noticed from not even just like your organized like protests and marches, but I mean, we go to a lot of them. If there's something going on, down there at Westminster, we want to know what's up.
Yeah.
Even if we don't really know what it's about, to be honest, we go and just talk to people, right, and hear people's stories, but. Something that has been come up a lot is like people are fighting for their kids. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my kids. And that got us thinking like, well, then what does that future look like for the kids? You know what I mean? And I don't want to like turn us dystopian, or anything like that. But I think, as I said earlier, a lot of people have a hard time viewing past their current circumstance and what affects them in the moment, So should everything continue on in this path, how would you see life for your kids? Do you know what I mean? And what is this thing that people are fighting for their kids so their kids don't have to live through? Do you know what I mean? Could you articulate that a little bit?
Yeah, I think people are very concerned that their children will be in a position where they have to have vaccines that they're concerned about, or that there'll be like checkpoint systems. And, it's very easy once you've all got to start showing your papers that this expands further. And, I was at a talk the other day with a few MPs and stuff, and they were asked, do you see the vaccine passport as a first step to a kind of social crediting system? And they said, yes, we do. And that's why we're really concerned about it. MPs are saying it as well as us. That, because, in China, there is a social crediting system where you have to behave. And if you speak out against the government, you lose points. And if you lose too many points, you can't do things. And, it's not a life of freedom, and, they want their children to be free. To do as, make their choices, and rightly so. So I think there's just a fear of lack of freedom, but a lot of people are in fear. A lot of people are fear driven, and that isn't necessarily the most productive space, I find. Instead of looking at the problem, assessing it, and then coming at it with faith and trust and hope, they come at it from the fear and the anxiety. And that can make people quite all over the place a bit. So I'd say to everybody, if you're scared of that, dig deep, find the faith to counter it, and then act, because it produces better actions, in my opinion.
That's really
my
good.
Experience.
That's really good. And then I guess on the flip side as well, I know we kind of talked about it with, real democracy and all of that, but what would your ideal society look like? If we could if that was dystopia, we're in utopia now.
Yeah.
What would it look like for you?
So for me, it would look like my kids a Steiner school. So it would be something like that across the education board. No tests, no uniforms, no formal education until they're 7. Really enhancing children to grow into their best self. Which involves being able to read and write, because you're not going to get very far. That's a good thing. It's not. I'm not saying don't teach them these things, but there's ways of doing it that really hold a child. So an education system that really enhances children. A society where you can have free speech, and getting rid of this cancel culture issue. If you say something that's not how everybody, a certain group of people decides it should be, a banking system that is mostly run on credit unions, which are cooperative banks rather than, and therefore owned by people who have their money in them rather than big banking systems. Fair wages for all, everybody being able. Poverty and homelessness is a political choice. There is no necessity for anybody in this country to be poor or homeless. It is a political choice. And as we saw in the pandemic, they managed to house every homeless person like that. But then they boot them all out again 2 months later, back onto the streets. So there'd be no homelessness, there'd be no poverty, because there is no necessity for it. There would be a health service that actually, does that need to be the National Health Service? I don't know. But a health service that can be accessed by everybody, but actually works, and doesn't bow down to pharmaceutical pressures and put profits over people. And a political system that gives us a voice. It gives us a voice and is actually working for the people. And, you can get rid of all party politics and still run the country. You don't need. So actually have full unity, freedom of expression, and a society that it doesn't necessarily need to be a Christian faith, but just is coming at this world from a positive, grounded place with an abundance mindset, because everybody is constantly in fear of scarcity. We do not act rationally. People work jobs they hate that make their lives miserable because they're scared that they don't have a choice. They feel trapped. And I want people to have choices. Everybody should have a home. Everybody should have heating. Everybody should have food on the table. And then you get to choose. You choose. Do something that inspires you. You can still have more by doing more, but I'm not saying that people's efforts shouldn't go unrewarded, but nobody should be worried. Nobody should be doing a job they hate. I just can't bear it. And that for me, people are trapped in these systems, and freedom is what I want for everybody.
There you go. Easy to say,
Isn't it
that
just?
sums it all up. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, yeah, just one last kind of question, if you like, before we do wrap up. I mean, what are your thoughts on then kind of thinking about it from the other side, so to speak? People, they have freedom, and then they also have consequences for some of the choices that they make. You're not fussed so much because not you're not fussed, but just like what I'm saying is, you're more concerned. You're much more like, well, they had the freedom, and because sometimes there are certain things in place to help not make poor decisions, right? So, kind of, what is that balance for you? I know that's a really hard question, but because I don't know. For example, someone who is on the streets, for example, sometimes it's not every case for sure, but it can be by personal choice. They've made bad decisions, and they're there because of these decisions that they've made. Is it just kind of, I don't know, is there like a lesson to be learned, and is there kind of, do we just keep giving them chances? And do you know what I mean? Not that I'm on this side, but just to kind of see your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really hard one because, there are lessons to be learned, and sometimes the only way you're going to start working up is by hitting rock bottom. And it's not that there shouldn't be consequences for behavior and stuff, because, I'm a recovering alcoholic as well, 10 years sober now. But do you know what? I was still loved and that is the thing. It's a really hard point with the people that we've got that have lived in the system that we have, which has destroyed a community aspect. There is no kind of, nobody just pops around for a cup of tea anymore because you have to text first and you have to do this first. And like, if people just knock on your door, everyone's suspicious these days. Like, whereas
who is that?
Like, why didn't you text me first? There is no just, and so we're all being very separated. And so really, I think the kind of utopia decision things that I just described really won't come into effect for a number of years, a number of generations, once people have been loved through education instead of forced through like this system where it's very rigid, and they're enhanced and they're supported. And, I've got a teenager now who's trying to make decisions that just, I'm looking at them, and as an adult, as her parent, I'm going, that's not the best decision for you. And but I have to not say, no, you can't make it. I'm like, well, let's work through a process before you make that decision.
Right.
And she's resistant to that because she's a teenager. And it's like, this is great fun.
Bless you.
Teenagers, hey. But, love, for me, love is just an expression of the Holy Spirit, and everybody just needs that in their life. And actually, would we have these people that would make these bad decisions if there was enough love and if there was enough support? And in Sweden, anybody that goes to prison, it's recognized that they've got on average 7 issues, whether that's childhood trauma, poverty, drug issues and stuff, and they are helped. They're not scorned. They're not kind of condemned. They are helped, and they are actually shutting prisons in Sweden because these people come to prison, they help them with their issues. They go, right, let's look at what has brought you here.
Wow.
Let's help you. So it's not that they don't go to prison, but when they're there, they actually get the help and support they actually need, instead of just then chucking them back out on the streets with all the same issues. And then, oh, they're back again. What a surprise. People just need love. And I think, with that, people can overcome any of these things.
Yeah. There we go.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
You end the questions on such great I'm like, should we just end the episode here? I don't know. Do we even need to do an outro? Yeah, you're seasoned at this. We good job. But yeah, I mean, I'm good, Zach.
Yeah.
We should probably start
Thank
wrapping
you so
this up.
much.
We said we were going to do a while ago. But
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, that was
pleasure.
lovely. Yeah.
Louise, this has been awesome. And again, for you guys listening, hopefully, that you got something out of this as well. Again, regardless of where you stand on so many different points, I think we can all agree with the very bare bones, of all of this, which is, seeing the person as a person, and seeing Yeah, everyone with eyes of love. I love that. And I'm like, if we walk around society actually with the intention to love one another, you know, as you said, it might take a lot of time, but we could really change things.
Yeah.
You know, and that's beautiful. And it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get so caught up in like just the complexity of our systems and everything. But, you know, to take it back down, it's like, what can I do on a personal level right now? You know? So that's awesome. That's a great challenge. And something that we want to challenge you guys who are listening as well. And you've given up so much. You know, you've made a lot of sacrifices to fight for what you believe in. And we want to challenge you guys as well. Like, what are you believing in? You know, like, what is the thing that's on your heart to fight for, you know, and to be willing to make those sacrifices? Because, you know, from Louise, your story, like, it's not easy, but sacrifices are worth it, you know, when you actually believe in something. So if there's anything you get or like take away from that, you know,
Yeah, and let's
fight
know.
for something.
Yeah, let us know as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, actually, we are, just some news for the future, we are starting our own YouTube channel.
That is right.
So yeah, that is coming in the next few weeks. However, the videos will be posted on both channels.
Yes. So you can find
Yeah.
the Anchor of the Week is what we will be officially on as our own YouTube. But you can still find these videos on Hope and Anchor Community Church, the Anchor of the Week playlist. But it will also be posted on the Anchor of the Week YouTube channel. And then in a few weeks, we'll only be posting on the Anchor of the Week. So we're giving you a little bit of a grace period where you can still watch on the Hope and Anchor Community Church. But make sure you make your way over to the Anchor of the Week because we've got lots of awesome content coming for you.
We have, yes. In fact, I'll let you introduce.
Oh, guys,
the next
I am
one,
so
'cause-
excited. This was our one-off, kind of like our series like premiere because we got some changes going around. But guys, we are starting next time with our series on the World Wide Web. I am so excited. We chose to call it the World Wide Web because that is way more dramatic than the internet.
so much better.
But it's the inner workings of it. We're going to attack this from every different angle you can think of. So just buckle up your seatbelts because it's going to be a wild time.
Yep.
But yeah, and where can they find us in the meantime, Zach?
Yes, social media,
That's right.
Instagram, the Anchor of the Week, obviously all podcast platforms,
Yeah.
and the YouTube, which we went over.
Of course. And where can they find you, Louise, if they want to?
Yeah, so
updated.
Save Our Rights UK is on all social media, Instagram, Telegram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we've also got a Facebook community group as well. So if you want to talk about these issues as well with other people, then you can join the group as well as follow the page and find out more about what's going on.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been
Thank
a
you. And thank
pleasure.
you for
Thank you so much. Yeah.
coming with your drums and helping me lead the way. You're phenomenal.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.